Day or Question 7. 10 of your favorite goth bands. Oh. This poses a small problem for me in that I am not at all positive that what I think of as goth, in terms of music, is the same as what the rest of anyone else in the world thinks of as goth. Call it goth, don't call it goth, I don't care. My 10 favorite bands that cover macabre material in their lyrics, or which have sort of a dark feel to the music. That's my criteria. Number 1, the first one on the list, is Valentine Wolf. They are amazing. It's a married couple, Braxton and Sarah, who both studied music, like they both have masters and PhDs in music, so they come up with these really interesting, beautiful compositions. She has this beautiful, like, just airy soprano that I'm an alto and I'm a shitty singer, so the combination of which I'm just in awe of her voice. And Braxton plays the electric upright bass, which I didn't even know was a thing until the first time I saw them in concert. If you've been keeping up with my YouTube channel, you know that I'm a little bit biased here in that I know them personally and I'm friends with them, but they really honestly produce some of the most beautiful music.
The sun falls like a guillotine. The dark comes alive.
They are an LA-based band. I think they finally got like a stable, steady drummer who is their drummer, but for a long time it was Curtis on vocals and guitar and Eric doing, you can't see my hands, this is what I do for piano and typing and all of those things, but like on a synth. It's just really cool stuff. I would describe their style as sort of hard rock? I don't know, they talk a lot about sort of horror movie tropes. One of my favorite songs by them is called Aim for the Head, which is of course about the zombie apocalypse. They have another great one called Buried Alive that is, as you might expect, about being buried alive. I just did a burlesque number, debuted a brand new burlesque number to one of their songs called Here There Be Witches. They have 3 albums out, LA-based. I've seen them in concert once. The sound balance was terrible, for which I blame the venue, but they were still really awesome.
When I find the living aboard, there's a place I go.
To be honest, I'm not as huge a fan of his newer stuff as I was of his older stuff. Regardless, I feel like any list of modern goth musicians is sort of incomplete without him. He was probably the first goth music, like his stuff was the first goth music that I was really into at all. I was a huge fan of his in college. And like I said, I've sort of my fandom of him has sort of tapered off a little bit over the years. But he's incredibly prolific, has a lot of really great stuff, even his more recent albums, which, as I said, I have not been as into as I was some of his earlier stuff. There's always a few tracks that end up, you know, making it onto the loop of things I listen to all the time. This is a band I actually only just discovered in February back at Wicked Fair. They were scheduled to perform against me, like our schedules. We were always on stage in different parts of the hotel at the same time. I was never actually able to catch a full show of theirs. I did catch a song or two at the end of one of their sets that happened to be in the next space that I needed to be in. And they were really good. Mike and I picked up their CD, listened to it on the way home. It was wonderful. They're clearly Munsters fans, and I'm always going to be an Addams Family girl, but I can forgive them for that because, yeah, I just really liked their sound. I don't know, it was rock, but it sort of reminded me a lot more of sort of classic goth music in terms of the overall sound than pretty much anything else on this list.
The world in smoke and fire, Barbara. Dive until it's coming out our ears. Why don't you come and...
Pine Box Boys are not goth. Like, this is what I was talking about when I was saying that I didn't think that I had 10 truly goth musicians that I could put here. But they deal, as you might guess from the name Pine Box Boys, they deal with a lot of macabre stuff. I only have one of their albums. It is Tales of the Emancipated Head. It's a really interesting concept album. I really love it. Some of the songs on there are amazing. I also have a burlesque number to one of their songs, The Weeper, off of that album. The material is very macabre, but the style of music is pretty seriously bluegrass. It gets a little bit dark here and there musically, but it's sort of hard to ignore the fact that one of the primary instruments you can hear is a banjo.
Missed me, now you gotta kiss me. My friend has problems with winter and autumn. They give him prescriptions, they shine bright lights on him. They say it's genetic, they say he can't help it, they say you...
I wish that Joan of Arc wouldn't hang around the park, pronouncing that she won't get burned again. Her armor's very shiny, and her message is divine.
Next on my list is Amanda Palmer / the Dresden Dolls, and I realized that her solo career is its own separate thing from the Dolls, but her first album in particular, musically, was very similar to the Dolls' style. And as much as I love Brian Biglione, I've met him a few times, he's a very sweet, wonderful man as far as I can tell. She's the one who has really continued to carry that momentum from the Dresden Dolls in terms of presence in the music industry. He's still been working. I'm not trying to belittle the stuff that he's done since then, because he has done some awesome stuff, and he's an amazing drummer if you ever get a chance to see him play. But I'm lumping Amanda specifically in because I want to include the live album that she and her husband Neil Gaiman put together. They did this tour, and for $1 on their Kickstarter, you got a digital copy of the album they created from that tour, only it took them forever to get the album out, and so in an effort to sort of appease people who were, I guess, getting, kind of up in arms and frustrated that it was taking so long to get this album, you actually got 2 albums. You got An Evening with Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer, and a prelude to An Evening with Neil Gaiman and Amanda Palmer, and it's tons of material, amazing stuff. I didn't really know where else to put this album on this list, because Neil Gaiman's not really a musician. Amanda Palmer does her own stuff, but I don't love Amanda Palmer's uke stuff by itself. I really liked her early work and her work with the Dresden Dolls, so I'm just sort of mashing it all up into one Amanda Palmer, Neil Gaiman, Dresden Dolls ball and calling that a goth band. She's a drag queen with a distinctly goth look. I don't love all of her music. I think some of the messages in some of her music, like there's one song, I think it's called Drink Until We Die, which, first of all, not a great message, but he talks about getting a DUI, and it just sort of glamorizes being drunk and drunk driving. And not that there's anything wrong with being drunk on occasion, we've all been there. It's fine. Sometimes it can even be fun, depending on who you're with and exactly how drunk you get. DUI, never okay. Never. Under no circumstances is that a thing that is okay. Other songs are fucking amazing, and she's got this very, club dance style to her music that is a lot of fun in contrast with the very dark material she's singing about, that lyrically her songs are about.
Black rain falling, falling down, oh, falling down upon the barren ground. I said black rain falling, falling down today.
Blackwater Tukebox is another one of my favorites. I am just gonna link you to their stuff. I'm gonna link all of the bands that I've been talking about, but I'm specifically gonna link a couple of, YouTube videos or something, because I have no idea how to describe their style. I'm sure that somebody who knows more about music than I do would have a better time doing it, and I don't know how they describe themselves. I just know that I like their music, and they talk about some dark shit, and that's why they're on this list. This list has to include Diablo Swing Orchestra, which, if you were to think about that name, is exactly what you think it would be. It is what you would get if you blend sort of heavy metal, swing music, and the one vocalist has sort of a very operatic sound, so not really orchestral necessarily, but it's that blending of three very different genres of music. And again, the material itself is often very dark and very macabre, which is why it's on this list. And they're a lot of fun. They're super danceable, especially if you like swing dance, but maybe you want music with a little more of an edge to it.
The sweeter the flood is, the sadder the streams. The moon is disgust.
Final item on this list is stretching a little bit. It is a musician called That One Guy. His music is weird. I don't really have a good description of what his music's about. Like, the lyrics are very unusual and could be dark. Some of them are pretty dark. Some of them are maybe only dark because that's how I interpret them. I don't know. But he plays an instrument of his own invention called the magic pipe, which is this huge, literally this huge pipe that sometimes he blows into, sometimes he blows across, sometimes he's got, like, strings attached, like musical strings, from one end to the other so he can make some twangy sounds and some vibration sounds, and I saw him live a few years ago, and he plays everything live. Like, you listen to him, he's got this sort of industrial kind of sound, and to know that all of that is produced on one instrument. He does loop stuff, like, he definitely records while he's playing and then loops it back over it, so it's not like it's all being played on an instrument all simultaneously, but it's all that instrument, and that is incredibly fascinating to me. Plus, he has some really weird, dark lyrics sometimes.